Good evening, and welcome to Behind the Shadows. My name is Susan Finelli, and I am your host and author of Behind the Shadows, a program where we go behind the shadows of what meets the eye. This evening, we will be looking behind the shadows of music therapy, and I am pleased to say that my guest tonight is Dr. Joanne Loewy. Dr. Loewy is the director of the Louis Armstrong Center for Music and Medicine, a music therapy program here at Beth Israel Hospital in New York. And for our fans that follow our show, you'll remember Miss Phoebe Jacobs. We did a show on Louis Satchmo Armstrong, No Sour Notes, and she told us all about this program, and she was generous enough to introduce me to Joanne, and Joanne was more than generous to come and speak with us this evening. Dr. Loewy is a certified music therapist who received her doctorate in music therapy from NYU. And she has instituted the Louis Armstrong Music Therapy Program in 1994. She is a published author. She edited several books around the country and around the world. And she received Dr. Loewy received the Care and Compassion Award at Beth Israel Hospital a few years ago. And Dr. Loewy, I'd like to welcome you to our show this evening.
Thank you.
And also, you brought two of your staff with you. John, if you can tell us what you do at the hospital?
Sure. I'm the clinical director of the Louis and Lucille Armstrong Music Therapy Program, which operates within the Louis Armstrong Center for Music and Medicine, triaging basically all the inpatient referrals to staff and our interns that we train.
Right. And Natalie, if you can talk to us a little bit about what you do at the hospital?
Yeah. I'm the fellow, and this is the opportunity that the department gives a music therapist from other countries, that we are professionals, and that we want to go into different part from the music therapy that maybe we can't find in our country.
I see. Now, very recently I attended an event. The foundation had its 5th anniversary, where they celebrated the Institute, and I have to say that not only did they celebrate the program, but they also celebrated Dr. Loewy. I was fortunate enough to be a guest that evening, and it is amazing what the program does and what you have brought to the program. So if you can tell us how you got interested in music and then how that transpired to music therapy.
Sure. There's many ways that I've been interested in music. I grew up in a family where my older brother was severely autistic, and when music was played, he would rock in rhythm and gaze into my eyes. So that turned into loving music in my everyday life and finding that no matter where I went, I could connect with the most difficult kinds of people using music, which in the early 90s, I was actually hospitalized for a serious illness, and I found out that music could impact things like my blood, how thin or thick it was, my breathing. So I learned firsthand what we're talking about tonight, the impact of music on medicine. And it's really not just me, Dr. Joanne Loewy, that has instituted the program. It's our clinical director, John Montanaro, and fellows like Natalia, who have come overseas to partake in the research so generously that has grown our program. So I'm just thrilled that we're together here tonight.
As am I. And I've been to your facility, and you were kind enough to show me around. And there is every instrument imaginable and those that you can't imagine. And you can play every one of them. But what really kind of drew my attention is this special chair at the it's the Boehm chair.
Yes.
And I understand it's the only one in the world. It's one of a kind. If you can talk to us a little bit about that chair.
Well, I'll say a little bit, and then this chair there's a few of them, and Boehm music makes instruments really catered to the ailments that affect human beings. And this particular chair has strings behind it, 88 strings, and they're all tuned to octaves. And in music, the octave resonates with balance. And we use this a lot in our work with pain. We use it with the breath, and the special wood that is used actually filters down from head to toe. So it's not recorded music, it's actually live.
Live music. Now, I understand, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about this Music and Medicine journal that you have, and if you can, someone explain this to us, what this is and what it's all about.
Sure. Joanne is one of the founders of this journal, and it's great because it brings literature to the medical community in terms of how music impacts the body, and the body impacts the mind, and vice versa, and how we're treating various diagnoses with music therapy as an integrative treatment with pharmacologic management. So this journal is cutting edge. There's nothing like it out there, so it's really pioneering effort to put the journal.
Now, is this a journal the general public can obtain, or is this just for medical professionals?
It's actually free online for another year, and it's an international journal. The editorial board is doctors and nurses, music therapists around the world.
Well, if you could tell our audience how they can obtain this, what the website is.
Sure, right on the back of the journal. If you go to www.iammonline.com, IAMM is International Association for Music and Medicine, online.com, and you just press the link. You can join IAMM and get the journal hard copy, and even without joining, you can get it for free on the internet.
That's wonderful. Now, the program is the Louis Armstrong Center for Music, and you were kind enough to share a letter with me that Louis Armstrong wrote, I think it was 3 days before he passed, and I'd like to read it, if that's okay.
Sure.
Louis Armstrong was at Beth Israel. I don't know how long he was there, but I think it was a while. He had very serious illness. And when he got home, he wrote a letter to the hospital staff, and I'd like to just take a moment to read it. And it's dated June 22nd, 1971, and it's 3 days before his death. This is Louis Satchmo Armstrong, speaking from the home in Corona, New York. I've just gotten out of Beth Israel Hospital. I had a million things that have happened to me, including a tracheotomy, and I'm coming along just fine. I'm getting my strength back in my legs. I thought it would be thrilling to send a message to all my fans and friends all over the world, thanking them for all their sincere concern, also for their prayers and religious services said for me during my illness. The thousands of letters and cards were a comfort, but too many to answer personally. This is my way to show my appreciation by saying thank you, friends in every nook and cranny of the world, for thinking of old Satchmo. I also want to thank my doctor, Gary Zucker, his staff of doctors, Mrs. Lucille Armstrong, and Dr. Alexander Schiff, our company doctor. Ira Manning, our road manager for many years and still is. If I ever get back to work again, I'm looking forward to it. I feel that my public and fans want my service again and waiting for me. I would also like to thank all the nurses in intensive care. God bless them all. They worked many hard hours along with us and Dr. Zucker to pull me through and save my life. God knows I was in real bad shape. I would also like to thank the private nurses on the 11th floor in Beth Israel Hospital, excuse me, who nursed me around the clock. All of them were so nice and kind and patient. So I think maybe this was the beginning of Louis Armstrong's foundation, and then subsequent to that, the music therapy session. It's a wonderful letter, and unfortunately he died 3 days after he wrote this. So talk to us a little bit about what music therapy is. I see you have instruments here, so maybe you can give us a little demonstration. And I understand that it began with children in the children's ward, but then Phoebe Jacobs told me that during 9/11, you were contacted. So if we can talk a little bit about that, and so how it went from just children to the 9/11 victims and now to the public, at large.
Sure.
The children's work, maybe we can talk a little bit about the work that we do in pediatrics first.
Okay. Well, because the program started in pediatrics, we've continued to have a stronghold there, and children are often the forgotten voice in a hospital, so music therapy provides a forum in which children can normalize in a hospital experience. It can be threatening. They can gain mastery over their experience and become participants in their care. And music therapy, as a verbal and nonverbal modality, supports that and really optimizes coping.
Right.
So those principles are at work in pediatrics, and they really extend into other populations. And I think when 9/11 tragically occurred, there was a need to find another context in which people could process that experience and really experience loss and process the loss and grief that ensued from that event. And music therapy was a project caring for the caregiver that Joanne and some of the other pioneers in the field of music therapy worked on together.
We received a grant from the American Music Therapy Association through the Grammy Foundation to do a training, because none of our staff or any doctors or nurses had ever experienced the magnitude of loss and trauma. So we studied the effects of music in that area, and that study led to adult work. And if we fast forward to today, we're doing a project on resiliency. Probably the most traumatic thing that can happen to a human being is to get ill, whether you're ill by an earthquake, or you're ill by a flood, or you're ill by cancer. And the work that Natalia is doing up at St. Luke's Roosevelt on the cancer unit there, maybe you could say a little bit about what we're studying and the impact of what music can build in cancer.
So we are studying the effects, the clinical music therapy on resiliency in adults undergoing infusion treatment. So the main thing is try to give intervention when they are in the beginning of the illness. When they just start with the treatment, because it's the most stressful part in this process, because they just know what happened with her or him, and they start with all the expectation about. And
the treatment is unknown. It's unknown to them, so they're frightened because they're not sure what's coming.
Yes,
exactly.
So we are doing in two levels. One group of patients, they have music therapies in 3 sessions, and other group they don't have. So we want to compare what happened in this part of the treatment.
So you have test cases, kind of like a placebo. Right. Perhaps you can give us a little sample of what music therapy is?
Sure. Yeah, I think whether we're working with children or adults, what we value in our program is the use of live music, music that can be shaped according to the client or patient's respiration rate, what they're presenting with in terms of existential themes, loss, separation, isolation, transition. These are all themes that we look for in the work, and use music to then provide a sense of catharsis or liberate.
Maybe you can give us a little sample of what it's like.
This is actually a lullaby.
You're not going to put me to sleep, are you?
No. In the NICU, the neonatal intensive care unit, we work with parents of the premature infants, and we value what we call Song of Kin, and it's really taking the music of the family and recreating that so that it can be part of the NICU bonding experience, and to really support the psychological imprinting that's compromised in that population when infants are separated from parents.
And we have a lullaby. We also have the womb sounds with the remote motion disc, and we have the heartbeat replicated here with a Gato box. We're actually holding that environment that babies are thrown out of.
Interesting.
So this is a Celtic lullaby. We look at music from around the world, whatever is the cultural affinity of the family. Oh, he mina mor bina. Oh, he mina khor bina. Oh, he mina khor kan ke mina skoden for ya.
That's wonderful, wonderful. I have the chills, I really do.
It was a gift to receive from that parent. You know?
I bet it was a gift, you know. And talking about gifts, when I came up and met Joanne, I said to her, you know, we went around, I think I met you that day also, and she was talking about the program and the instruments, and I said to her, what a gift this is that you give to the patients and their families. And Joanne said to me, no, the gift is what they give to me. So if you can talk a little bit about what you get back. I mean, I'm sitting here, I have chills up my spine just listening to this, and I can imagine a parent, you know, of a child in dire need, how they must feel. But let's talk a little bit about how you feel, what it does for you.
I think, you know, you just hit the nail on the head, is that people undergoing injury or illness coming to the hospital, they often leave what we call a core of resilience at the door, and they give themselves over to other caregivers to assume that control. So to be able to reignite that spark, be it in a teenager or a school-age child or an adult in their 70s or 80s who is so muted by the experience of treatment that they lose sight of of what remains intact. When the body is breaking down, there's a spirit of resilience, a core of resilience that remains intact. And if we can reach that and ignite that, then resiliency is enhanced, and I think coping is optimized, healing becomes quicker, because you're really addressing the body, mind, spirit connection.
Yeah.
One of the interesting things that ties in, we have a study right now on spine pain, looking at really the impact of music on the spinal surgeries, posterior and anterior fusion, which is excruciating painful. And to look at music in that context, we're finding that, we're halfway through the study, and we're finding that patients are responding to the idea, the prospect of moving off pharmacologic management sooner, and that's really tied to connecting to that inner core, that I can move through this.
Right.
And
Yeah,
so that's
it's quite amazing.
It's good to be able to give that.
Yeah, to give. What kind of training do music therapists need? I mean, I know you're a doctor, but I mean, what's the first step? I wake up one morning, I say, I really want to be a music therapist. So you're the newest into the field. So what inspired you?
I'm from Spain, so it's kind of different. But it's I love the music, and I study psychology. So I was looking for the space to put together,
to bring it together.
Yes, the psychology and the music. So this was the way, music therapy.
Yeah, yeah. When I was at the facility and we were walking around and Joanne was picking up every instrument in sight and playing it, which I was like an oar. I see a clarinet when I was in school. I took clarinet lessons. That was, it was impossible. I couldn't play the clarinet. But Joanne is amazing. She can play everything. But she said to me, "What's your favorite song?" No one ever asked me what my favorite song was, and I thought a minute because a song kept coming into my mind that I haven't heard for years, and the more I was trying to get it out of my mind, because I say, how could that be my favorite song? I haven't heard it, haven't sung it in years, and then I finally just blurted out. I said, "Blowing in the Wind," and she said, "Well, that's the most famous song," right?
It's actually posted the words on one of our cabinets.
Yeah, it's the most.
It's one of the most popular songs of all time.
Of all time, which I never knew. But getting back to how music helps heal, many years ago, I was in an accident. I was walking down the street and mortar from a building fell on my head, and I had nightmares and couldn't sleep. So anyway, when the doctors knew I was getting well, is one day I was at the doctor and he says, "How you doing?" I said, and this was months and months later, I said, "Today's the first time I sang." And he said, "You're healing. You're getting better." I never connected it because this was, 20 years ago, whatever. I didn't know anything about music therapy. But then I met Joanne and I connected. I says, he told me, because you don't sleep, you have nightmares, and it's a vicious cycle. But one morning I was getting ready and I started to sing, and I said, "I sang today." And he says, "Well, now I know you're getting better."
Wow. I love that vignette because it's music is integral to who we are, and to go back to your other question, it's innate, and music therapists are trained clinicians to bring that out in people. The trajectory for training includes board certification and licensure in the state of New York, and most music therapists practicing are at the master's level or beyond. Natalia comes from Spain with a master's in music therapy, and now through the fellowship she'll be eligible for board certification in this country.
That's wonderful, wonderful. Well, do you have another little tune you can play for us?
One of the areas, because we go around helping build programs around the world, and an easy area to help people understand where music can help. And when you talked about a gift, our gift is to be able to help many people all at one time. And so a big problem in this country and around the world is that the intensive care units are very noisy. So we are now beginning a study with Dr. McMillan at Beth Israel in our surgical intensive care unit. And we just got funding for it from the Country Music Foundation.
Wow. How do you get your funding?
Well, yes, that's a whole discussion. We're always looking for support. We've had some great grants from Johnson & Johnson Foundation. We're looking into Robert Wood Johnson. wherever there are foundations that support healthcare. So anyway, we use this music that we're going to play now. It's a music meditation to bring down the noise. It helps the staff and the patients. And it makes it a more homey community place rather than just an intensive care unit with beeping pumps.
Okay, well, let's go.
This is an improv.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. I wish we could stay here much longer, but I see that I'm getting cued that we're running out of time. I'd like to thank...
We're so grateful that the Louis Armstrong Educational Foundation has kept us alive for 17 years.
And if you want to know more about the foundation, you can contact Dr. Loewy. Her credits are up. And thanks, John and Natalia.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank our audience for tuning in. And until next time, remember, the brightest light shines behind the shadows. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to have you.